Sensual pleasures are painful. Talk number 5, mental development. When we come to the temple to give alms to the monastic order, to keep the moral precepts, and to cultivate mental development, we are in effect creating happiness for ourselves. There are two kinds of happiness, namely, physical and mental. To feel good physically is not hard to do. All we need are the 4 requisites of life, such as food, clothing, shelter, and medicine, to prevent the body from getting sick, go hungry, or thirsty. But the happiness of the body is insignificant when compared to that of the mind, both in strength and intensity. Though the body may be well and fit, the mind could still be afflicted with sorrow and pain that could adversely affect the body. On the other hand, when the body is not well, has aches and pains here and there, a happy mind could diminish or eliminate them entirely. Taking good care of the mind has therefore become the center theme of the Buddha's teaching. When the body gets sick, it doesn't hurt so much if the mind is happy. A happy mind could rise above the physical pain. But when the mind is unhappy, it could cause the physical fitness or well-being to diminish or disappear entirely. For this reason, the Buddha kept stressing the importance of taking good care of the mind more than taking care of the body. The mind needs the Dhamma, meritorious and wholesome Dhamma, to make it happy. Otherwise, it could never be happy. What we are doing here today is installing the Dhamma inside our heart and mind, because the Dhamma is like medicine that could cure the sorrow and pain caused by the mental defilement or kilesa that have been embedded inside our heart and mind since time immemorial and accompanied us through countless rounds of rebirth. We have to use the Dhamma, wholesome, skillful, good, and meritorious Dhamma, to cleanse our heart and mind of the kilesa in order to eliminate all of our sorrow and pain. The Buddha's enlightenment is a cause for rejoicing and celebration because of the invaluable assistance he could offer to all sentient beings, as he is the only person in the entire universe who has discovered the secret to true happiness or supreme bliss that results from the elimination of the kilesa from the mind by the good and wholesome Dhamma. The kilesa are like germs and viruses inside the body that could cause sickness and death, such as the HIV virus that causes AIDS and incurable disease. While the kilesa are not eradicated from the mind, stress and suffering can still afflict all of us. We are fortunate because we have the Buddha to help us cure our mental illness. He is like a physician who has discovered the Dhamma medicine to heal our mind. Unfortunately, no one has yet found a cure for AIDS, and for those afflicted, death seems to be the only outcome. Before the Buddha became enlightened, no one in this world knew how to make the mind stay happy all the time. Now we know by his teaching that bliss and contentment can only be realized through the eradication of the kilesa, namely greed, anger, and delusion, from our mind by the cultivation of Dhamma, good and meritorious Dhamma, a message he had been propagating for 45 years. The purpose of our coming to the temple is to cultivate the various levels of Dhamma, skillful and wholesome Dhamma, as much as we can. Some of us could only cultivate dana, the giving of the 4 requisites such as food, clothing, medicine, and shelter to the monastic order. Others could do more, like keeping the 5 or 8 precepts, depending on the strength of our indriya or mental faculties like sattha, conviction, virya, persistence, sati, mindfulness, samadhi, concentration, and panya, discernment, that we have developed thus far. If they're highly developed, we would be able to practice bhavana, or mental development, in order to lift the mind up to higher planes of bliss, tranquility, and purity by eliminating the various kinds of kilesa. The Buddha exhorts us to calm our mind as the first priority because when the mind is restless and agitated, it is confused. It can't tell north from south, cause from effect, right from wrong, good from bad, pain from pleasure. It is deluded, not seeing things clearly as they are, such as seeing pleasure in sensual gratification when in fact it's miserable and painful. When we are addicted to sensual pleasure, we are subjected to stress and discontent like a drinker or a drug user, whereas a non-drinker or a non-user of drugs would know the difference, that it's better not to be addicted to alcohol or drugs. When we are possessed by the kilesa or delusion, we would not be able to see clearly. It is therefore imperative that we should first make the mind calm in order to clear up the clouds of defilement, blinding the mind like purifying water of pollutants. Once the water is separated from pollutants, it would become clear and transparent and would enable us to see what's in the water. It is the same with the mind. When it's defiled, it would become murky, couldn't see clearly, not knowing what is obscuring its vision. But once the mind has calmed down, it would temporarily be cleared of the defilement of greed, anger, and delusion, enabling it to experience a brief moment of joy and peace, long enough to let it know what true happiness is and where to find it. Next, we must use discernment, panya, to separate good from bad, right from wrong, wholesome from unwholesome, etc., just like separating the pollutants from the water. When the mind is calm and content, we would see that the defilement, kilesa, such as greed, anger, and delusion, are really a threat to our happiness and contentment, because when the mind is calm and tranquil, it would render the kilesa temporarily inactive, creating peace and contentment as a result. But as soon as the mind emerged from repose, samadhi, the kilesa would become active again by inciting greed, anger, and delusion into action, causing it to become restless and agitated. We would be able to see the harmful effect caused by the kilesa very clearly if we have already developed samadhi, even if we haven't heard of the kilesa before. We would know them by their destructive impact on our peace of mind and mental well-being. When we realize this, we must apply panya, insight, based on the Four Noble Truths, Arya Satya, and the three characteristics of existence, tilakkhana, inherent in all conditioned phenomena, namely, being inconstant, anicca, stressful, dukkha, and anatta, not self, to eliminate them. If we cling to anything in this world, we would be consumed by stress, sorrow, and pain because they are impermanent, subject to change and dissolution, and are not ours or ourselves, such as our body, for example, which we can see clearly will get old, get sick, and die one day, sooner or later. If we cling to it, we would then wish it to live for as long as possible, which is a form of greed or craving that runs contrary to the truth of the Buddha's teaching that says all bodies are impermanent, cause stress and anguish, and not a self. If we have the Dhamma teaching residing in our mind to remind us the truth of the tilakkhana, we would be able to eliminate our attachment to our body because it's like a lump of burning coal that will burn our hands if we scoop it up. But if we merely look, it would not cause us any pain because the body is just a lump of the four physical elements, namely, earth, solidity, water, liquidity, wind, gas, and fire, heat, that our deluded mind happens to take possession of. If we know this and let go of our clinging, it would then not cause us any pain or anguish. It's similar to taking possession of a plot of land that doesn't belong to anybody and claims it to be our property. If someone should snatch it away from us, we would be sorry because we were attached to something that doesn't really belong to us in the first place and would not permanently remain with us anyway. Our body is like this plot of land that we stake our claim to by considering it to be ours and ourselves. When it becomes old, sick, and dies, we will be consumed by sorrow and pain because we lack panya or insight into its true nature. If we continually contemplate on the truth of the three characteristics of existence, such as anicca, impermanence, dukkha, stress, and anatta, not self, we would not dare to cling to anything or wish for things to be as we would like them to be. But instead, we'd let them be as they are and will be, and be ready to see them depart even if they are our possessions. If we could really do it, then we wouldn't be consumed by pain and sorrow because we have panya, wisdom, and vipassana, insight, to eliminate the kilesa from our mind, leaving it peaceful, content, and blissful. We'd have achieved the supreme bliss that the Buddha had pointed out to us by declaring that the happiness of this world can never equal or surpass the supreme bliss that arises out of a mind permanently subdued by the total removal of the kilesa from the mind. The bliss that results from the development of samadhi, concentration, is not this supreme bliss because of its temporary nature. Once the mind emerges from this samadhi, the kilesa, which were also subdued by the power of samadhi, would also emerge to wreak havoc on the mind again, which is not the same as the supreme bliss that results from the work of panya, wisdom, that has completely eradicated the kilesa from the mind, not allowing them to ever return again, like the minds of the Buddha and his noble disciples. If we truly aspire to this supreme bliss, we must develop both samadhi and panya. Do not be content with just samadhi because it's like a piece of rock sitting on a patch of grass, preventing the grass from growing. But when the rock is removed, the grass would eventually grow again because it was not uprooted, just like the kilesa, which can't be uprooted by samadhi alone. We need panya, wisdom, or vipassana, insight, to do the job. Therefore, after we have developed samadhi, we must then turn to the development of panya or vipassana by continually contemplating on the characteristics of all conditioned phenomena, such as the five khandhas or the five physical mental components of our existence, namely rupa, body, vedana, feeling, sanya, memory or perception, sankhara, thought, and vijnana, sensory awareness, as being impermanent, stressful, and not self. By continually contemplating on these three characteristics of conditioned phenomena, panya, wisdom, would gradually transform from conceptual to practical. Conceptual wisdom is contemplation of the truth, while practical wisdom is the application of the truth in our daily life, like when we get sick and become anxious. We must let go of our attachment to the body if we want to eliminate our anxiety. We should always be vigilant by constantly developing panya and vipassana after we emerge from samadhi. After contemplating for a while, the mind gets tired. We must then return to samadhi for a rest. After having rested, we would then do more contemplation. This is the way to develop samadhi and panya. They go together like the left and right foot we used for walking, taking turns stepping. Don't listen to those who say, skip samadhi, develop panya straight away, or those who say, once you have developed samadhi, panya would automatically appear. These views are not correct. In fact, both of them have to be cultivated and developed one at a time alternatively. They perform different duties. Samadhi is for resting and recharging the mental energy, while Panya is like a knife for cutting our attachment to things that agitate and vex the mind. We must watch what we're getting into in our practice. If we are devoting all our time to Samadhi, even after we have already mastered it, we should turn to developing Panya or Vipassana by contemplating on the three characteristics of all conditioned phenomena, such as our body, feeling, memory, thought, and sensory awareness. But if we are engaging entirely in contemplating without the support of Samadhi, we could become more deluded by our contemplation by thinking that we have become enlightened when no such thing has actually occurred. We should therefore rest and recharge the mind from time to time to keep it in balance. Samadhi and Panya are interdependent. They support and assist each other. Cultivating both would make our journey toward Nibbana smooth and trouble-free.